Well, welcome to Biblically Processing Life. We are on the agenda session. And in this particular topic, we're going to talk about this idea of agenda and the needs that rise as a result of the agendas that we create or the agendas that are made for us. And how that impacts the way we process life. Um, so by definition, an agenda is a list or plan of things to do. And so um, when we refer to this, it's just basically it's a plan. It's just a plan. It's a plan that we have, and the Bible talks about that, right? Many are plans of a man's heart, but the Lord directs his path. And so plans are a part of life. Whether we cognitively understand the plan we're making or unconsciously are making a plan, we do develop agendas on a daily basis. And so, when do we make agendas? Well, like I make an agenda when I start the day. Especially in an office situation where there's like a list of things to get done, or I look at across the week, I can make an agenda for the week. And so, really, we just define agendas as um, something that's made when there's a desired result to be achieved. And so I want to get to a particular result. I make an agenda. Now, we use this term loosely as it relates to life in general, but can also be strategically as it relates to very specific written out plans. So, uh, one of the things I'd like for you to do for just a moment is just to kind of think through um, an agenda, a typical agenda for the day, because we're gonna do that exercise. But if you were to, let's say, form an agenda, what would be necessary for an agenda to be successful? And so think about a typical list that you'd make, and maybe the things that you would need to have happen in order for that to be successful. Well, that agenda then defines a list of needs, what is needed for achieving desired results. So these needs get inputted into this idea of results, and they become necessary. They become a key component. And we'll talk more about that as we go along. So now do that for me. Pause the video, write down a typical agenda for your day. So, like for me, a typical agenda would be to get a lot done. I'm very task driven, so I'd really like to get a lot done in a day. Maybe you have an agenda that's like get through the day with or without, like without interruptions or with a chance to connect with somebody. Um, Maybe your agenda is just like I just want to survive the day. Um, any of those types of agendas that you might have, and they can be very specific or they can be very broad. They develop a list of needs that they go with them, and so um, in your notes you'll notice this chart, and we would just categorize those needs that really rise up in three different ways. There'd be physical needs, and there'd be emotional needs or spiritual needs. And so let's say I just want to get a lot done. Well, then I need time. I need the time to get it done. So I need that time to be free from interruptions. Maybe your particular agenda is I want to get some debt paid off, or I want to get this bill paid. So that there's money that might be a part of a physical need. Food might be part of helping to generate a successful part of your day. Especially if you're like, I want to get through the day without a lot of drama. Well, I don't want to get hangry. So whatever. And so there are just physical things that come into play. Sometimes skills. I need a certain amount of skills. When you're doing certain things and you find like, oh, things are just not working the way I want to, and I don't have the skills to make it move further. Or people. I might need people and resources to be able to help get things going. And then and when you talk about relationships, especially like married relationships, but couples or even just friendships, intimacy can be part of those physical needs. Emotionally, there are a set of needs that can be developed as a result of your agenda. I need people to love me or give me attention. I need appreciation. Um, I need respect. Maybe just comfort. I just need peace. I just need peace and quiet in order to make this work. Or I need safety. Or, really intimacy, emotional intimacy, like being able to connect with somebody at a deep enough level to be able to have honest conversations. The types of agendas that we have help to drive these types of needs. Now, spiritually, there are certain things that we might need in a situation. We need love, like sacrificial agape kind of love, or joy, peace, patience, kindness, gentleness, uh, goodness, faithfulness, self control, even the spiritual need of resisting temptation. You can see the fruit of the Spirit there, although it missed patience in the list. But those are sometimes things I need in order for me to successfully navigate that which I'm planning to do and be a part of. So, when we talk about it from an agenda standpoint, our agenda drives this set of needs that is a part of this learning blueprint, troubleshooting guide that we have been learning to work with. And so those needs then they start to provide this way of engaging with the experiences of our lives. And so I actually start to interpret experiences through the lens of those needs. So how do we develop those agendas? How do you get up in the morning and develop the agenda that you're working with? Well, selfish agendas are about getting what we want. And so that becomes the determining factor. What do I want? What do I want to get accomplished today? What do I want to see happen today? Really all about what I want. Interestingly enough, there's an alternate agenda that is also being set for us on a daily basis. That could be an alternate agenda from somebody like your boss or your spouse, co-workers, whatever. There are other people that can set up agendas, but specifically, there's an agenda that is related to our relationship with Jesus Christ. And that agenda is what Jesus is trying to do in conforming us to his image. And so there has to be an understanding that when we begin to be shaped and molded by Christ, or into the image of Christ, then there are agendas that will be God's agendas. Like, no matter, God's agenda supersedes all other agendas. Now, we don't necessarily know, God's ways are not our ways, what he's trying to accomplish, but we can begin to understand maybe what he's working on as a result of that. And the biggest challenge we have is that oftentimes our selfish agendas are in conflict with God's agenda. But our selfish agendas are maybe sometimes the reality of what God's agenda is trying to get to. And so it may be in conflict with where we're trying to arrive at, but they are the means by which God is trying to help us get to where he wants us to arrive at. And so it's really an interesting exploration in a day-by-day walk as we start to think through this concept of agendas and needs and what that will inevitably help us to discern. So Christ's agenda, if we look at it, Luke 22:42, you will see that in that particular space, we'll look it up together right now, that Jesus says there, in his viewpoint, like he's standing in the garden, he's about ready to face the cross, and he says, Father, if you're willing, remove this cup from me. Nevertheless, not my will, but yours be done. So Christ specifically lays out that he is desiring to do the will of God over and above his own will. And then John 6, 38 through 40, goes further into that and says this, I've come down from heaven not to do my own will, but the will of him who sent me. And this is the will of him who sent me, that I should lose nothing of all that he has given me, but raise it up on the last day. Well, there are some very specific things that Jesus would need to do in order to accomplish the will of the Father, in order to raise up all that had been given him in the last day. And so from a Christ perspective, there is an agenda there that he follows. My agenda is to do the will of God, which means God has an agenda that is also at play. So what is God's will and what's God's agenda for believers? Well, 1 Thessalonians 4:3, right, is God's will that you be sanctified, and that the Lord is going to finish and complete that sanctifying work. And sanctifying just is that idea of being conformed and shaped into the image of Christ. So if you were to go back and you kind of think through what's an agenda for a day, is your agenda in the day to be conformed into the image of Christ? Probably not. It's not what we consciously think of. Most of us would be like, yeah, that sounds nice, but it's not what drives us through the day. Most of the time, what drives us through the day is something that we want to see take place. But if you stopped and began to really process, all right, Lord, not my will, but yours be done, as it is on earth as it is in heaven, the disciple prayer there, really saying, Lord, what do you want to try to accomplish? It puts us in a good perspective then to be willing to adjust to the day or interpret the day or the events that are in our lives that we're going to talk about next as it relates to that agenda versus our agenda. So that doesn't mean we don't wake up in the morning and make plans. It just means that our plans are subservient to the ultimate plans of God, and when we use that as a context, it helps us to troubleshoot the realities of the life that goes on around us. So from an agenda standpoint, and we have a set of needs. So if God says, I'm moving you towards the image of Christ, that means there are a set of needs spiritually that I need. I need love, I need joy, I need patience, kindness, gentleness. I mean, those would be a pretty good list for us to consider. And so there is a very specific target that God is moving us towards. But in the same moment, we also have a set of needs that we believe we need, or that we want, and then as we face experiences throughout the day, they cause us to interpret those experiences through that lens. So as you stop to think through this idea of agenda, I just really want you to really process that idea as you work through the day. There's some great reconnaissance questions about that. How do you include God in forming your agenda? Just work out some of those particular thoughts. Focusing in on Colossians 1:3-17, just a really great thought process as it relates to this idea of agenda. The next session is going to focus more on the experiences then that cause us to interpret those needs that we have and the plans that the Lord has for us. So we'll catch you on the flip side.